We are another week closer to the playoffs, and to help as you patiently wait for it to begin, another YouTuber League weekly recap is coming your way. Welcome back everyone. Round 13 has already come and gone, and let me tell you, this week will very easily sate your appetite as the countdown to the playoffs continues. Although with Nuclear Winters pulling out of the season last week, we are left with another team to replace them, to serve as punching bags for the other teams. With several of our starting matches not recorded however, I will quickly run over them as all 3 matches ended in 2-0 victories for Omega Eta Alpha, the Reichland All Elite, and the Mini Sons of Anarchy, rampaging through their adversaries with ease. With these matches out of the way, let us take a look at our highlights of the week. Our first match that you want to tune in for this week is our game of the Godlike Puns as they go up against the Jailhouse Rockers. With both First Degree and Thought That Counts on the pitch together, with their combination of Claw and Mighty Blow, this will most likely be a very bloody match, especially when the rest of the team have no armor to save their hides from the brawl to come. To the fans' delight, the violence comes immediately. With the Rockers' offensive drive, they rapidly take out 2 of the Puns just as the ball hits the field. The Norse tried to fight back, but with Dribbles not keeping a surprisingly timid Yeti at bay, they were on the receiving end of the brawl, with more of their players rapidly getting incapacitated. They were able to sneak into the backfield however, forcing Warcrime to do a handoff in an attempt to keep the ball secure. With the mob boss so close to being blitzed by the Norsemen, their bloodlust got the better of them, as they try intently to take out as many players as they can. And despite the surf off the field, First Degree's loving fans were eager to see him back onto the pitch, just as Mob Boss rushes in for the touchdown. Invigorated from this early advantage, the Rockers blitz aggressively into the Norse for the kickoff, and with the Norse currently down 1 player to the Rats, they were put on the back foot as more knockouts and injuries piled on for the team. To end off the first half, Violence gets within reach of striking down Barely Odin on, and with him removed from the game, the Rockers were able to retain their lead going into the second half. Slowly but surely, the Underworld were winning the war of attrition, with the Godlike Puns now down to 7 players compared to the Rockers' 9. With the offensive drive, the Norse put all their effort into removing the deficit, gaining an early advantage thanks to the narrow kickoff. But the lack of players left an open window for First Degree as he goes all out on Minerva, sacking the ball down as the Goblins scramble for it.
Crazy time.
Hey man, it's not crazy if it works.
Whoa!
Grand Theft does the impossible, going through the entire brawl in the line of scrimmage to throw the ball up to Juvenile. The astonishing victory, however, is short-lived, as Juvenile is immediately taken out for his efforts. But without the numbers to secure the ball, the Rats continue to claw at the vulnerable Pigskin, succeeding in keeping it away from the Puns. The brawl eventually moved to the back of the field, with the Norse team desperately trying to reclaim the ball. But being down now to 4 players nearing the end of the second half, left the Puns with very little options once Blackmail manages to reclaim it, giving the Jailhouse Rockers the surprising victory by finishing off the match 0-2. Quickly going over our next match, which was not recorded, we have the Bouncing Warriors versus How Not to Contain Lizards, in a very lackluster match in terms of violence being handed out, as only a single Kislev player was harmed in the making of this match. However, the Kislev were able to somehow get some points in this game, if an ultimately futile one, as the Lizards win over against the Warriors 2-1. Moving on, we have the fragile Bloodmarks going up against Fluffy Green, and the Orcs are eager to join in on the violence this week, as they start off very strong with a knockout injury to kick off the match, already leaving our most fragile of elves severely down on the player count. But the elves are used to this kind of abuse by now, and with the failed block by Mr. Fluffy, gives Kerplunk a very early window to sack down the ball and casually catches it in front of all the fuming Orcs, eager to bash him. The Orcs attempt to surround the elves, but with nerves of steel, Face manages to take advantage of this play as he is able to break out the surrounding players and run in for a very early touchdown. Thanks to the mercenary players bought with inducements, the Bloodmarks were still able to retain their 11 players for the next kickoff, and they took full advantage of their early momentum this game, as the elves immediately blitzed in on the Orc lines with the shallow kick of the ball. Once more, effortlessly securing it, they proceed to fight through the surrounding Orcs, but at a cost of their bench of reserve players, as 2 more elves are removed from the pitch, one of which being Glass, who loses his life trying to hold off the Black Orcs. His sacrifice certainly wasn't in vain, as it allowed the Bloodmarks to further extend their lead, as they secured their second touchdown of the match. Finally, the Bloodmarks were starting to suffer from the attrition, as they now have only 10 players on the pitch for the next kickoff. But with the lead they already have, the game could very already be secured for them, if they are able to keep Fluffy Green from touching down in the first half. But the overconfidence and arrogance of the elves begin to show, as Paper, the star strength 4 player for the Bloodmarks, deliberately gets himself ejected, certain that victory was theirs for the taking, and wished to avoid suffering another injury to go with his smashed ankle earlier in the season. Despite the questionable play, the Orcs were unable to get their touchdown as we move into the second half. Now down to 8 players, the Bloodmarks may have just secured their win, regardless of their inability now to fight off Fluffy Green, who have been unhindered in their roster so far this match. Thanks to a touchback, the Elves have one more window to make an aggressive play into the Orcs' backfield, but Fluffy Green has had enough of their bullshit, and with the player deficit, the Bloodmarks were not able to hold off all the Orc blitzers, giving Mr. Footstool a clear path to blitz and sack down Kerplunk, removing the Elven menace from the pitch. This now is when things start to finally swing in Fluffy Green's favor, as now dropping down to 6 Elves on the pitch meant that there was no stopping the Green Tide from scoring their first touchdown of the game. With only one recovery for the next kickoff, and a rock dazing an elf in the process, Fluffy Green's advantage was starting to get them back in this game. With only 7 elves on the field, and with Kerplunk still knocked out, it meant the elves would have to play an honest game of Blood Bowl, if such a thing were possible for our nimble team. The Green Tide rampaged freely forward, and with no hope to hold them back, Phone made one desperate Hail Mary throw in an attempt to keep the ball out of the Orcs' hands. But still fed up with the elves' bullshit, Mr. Drooling does the miraculous deed of intercepting the thrower's pass, keeping the Orcs in the game as they continue their rampage all the way to a 2-2 tie, with plenty of blood to celebrate this moment.
I do kind of want you to do well, but I'm not just going to give you, anything. I'm not going to give you anything.
Oh, hell no. Of course you wouldn't.
Next up is our match pitting the Outworn Ideas as they go up against the Leg Lickers. The Amazons, now sitting in the number 1 spot, are looking in a strong position to take on their Khemri opponent. However, with their coach Caveman absent for the week due to urgent matters, it falls to the assistant coaches to once again secure victory in his stead. Even with the power of guard at their disposal, the ladies had a difficult start on the kickoff, as Brunhilde is immediately taken off the field, leaving the team to slowly get surrounded by a wall of towering skeletal giants. Slowly but surely, the Outworn made their way forward in pursuit of the ball, but little did they know this was all part of the plan, as Freyja nimbly avoids the shambling harassers and gets the ball safely up the field. In one single pass, the game changed from impending disaster to the easiest touchdown the Leglickers have achieved, and after slightly stalling out the clock, Ivistor is forced to score before there was nothing left of her teammates. With time left in the first half, the Outworn make an attempt to tie up the game.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
Oh shit. Oh shit. Please regen, please regen.
Yes! Getting regen!
Fuck!
Brunhilde, you fucking... Excuse me, I need to write that down.
However, the reward for their determination was the loss of their most prominent tomb guard, as Lumineferous Aether returns to guard his king's tomb. With the death, the Khemri's morale was shattered as the Leglickers retained their lead going into the second half. Both teams may still have 11 players on the pitch for the next kickoff, but the loss of Aether is still felt for the Outworn, as a half-hearted attempt of a pass opens up a window for the Amazons to blitz in and recover it. This was the moment that the Khemri let out their frustration on the ladies as they dove in on their team. It may not have been as bloody as the fans would have liked, but after successfully pinning down Brunhilde and throwing her off the field, hope still lingered for our disheartened undead. The ensuing brawl for the ball was looking favorable for the Khemri, as it did for the first half previously. However, the Leglickers were able to fight back thanks to the loss of their missing tomb guard. Greed and bloodlust may have overwhelmed our ladies, as once Smoking Health Benefit manages to secure the ball, our ladies put all their effort into removing the last two tomb guards off the field, which allowed the Outworn a chance to get back into the game as they tied up 1-1. Minutes remained for the match, with a tie looking imminent, but that all changed when the Tomb Guards counterattacked, ending the Amazons' early momentum and allowing for Miasma to make a blitz for the ball. Freyja fumbles the ball at that critical moment, leaving her to fend for herself as the rest of her team fights to hold the Tomb Guards at bay.
Push them out of the way,
Yep.
and ideally you'll actually pick it up.
Nuffle, you have fucked me over a lot of times, but please let me do this.
Yes! Yes! Now just don't roll a 1.
This moment causes the surprise upset. As Miasma blitzed Freyja back, the Outworn somehow manages to secure victory in the final moments of the game, taking the arrogance of the Leglickers down a peg with their defeat.
Another strength up on it.
Oh, that'd have been amazing, but that was not what happened. This is not Hemlock from the Nuffle League, where that did actually happen. Yeah, he was a bit of a terror. 6 strength bull centaur, no big deal.
It is time now for our final match of the week, as the large legends go up against the cursed suffering. Much of this match will be decided in how long the Snotlings can stay on the field, and it comes to no surprise when face off against dwarves that the answer is not very long, as by the time Clemens V is able to secure the ball in the end zone of the field, 4 of the stunty runts that barely counts as players are already off the field, filling the pitch already with a great deal of blood. The ogres tried to make a play on the ball early, while the dwarves were busy with their free injuries, but that was short-lived, as Sweet and Sour slips on the remains of a previous Snotling that was yet to be cleaned up on the field, giving the fortunate Hobgoblin a window to rush up to the line of scrimmage. It wasn't long after, with the player advantage the dwarves had, to open up a window for Clemens to advance further down the field, and with hardly any Snotlings remaining, the dwarves turned their attention to the hulking big guys.
Assuming he lives.
Yep, that is this team. And he's missed next game.
That call was incredible. Wow.
The half continued to get incredibly bloody, as not only did Inconvenient Truth narrowly avoid death, but Link and Princeton were dealt fatal injuries in the Ogre's retaliation, with only Princeton being worth keeping alive as judged by the apothecary. Even with the medical assistance, both Inconvenient Truth and Princeton will be out for their next match, allowing them to recover from their injuries. Only once all the Snotlings were removed from the field could Clemens finally be bothered to score for his team. But before we could make preparations for the second half, the Ogres decide to give us a halftime performance, where 2 more of the sufferers involuntarily are removed from the game, with another fatality to appease the already deafening crowd.
What the fuck is this match, man?
This is a match of fucking blood. Oh good, he gets back up too.
8 sufferers and 5 large legend players are all that remain for the second half, and with only a single Snotling left alive, it meant that Ogres and Dwarves were destined to go at it once again on the pitch. Fenris gets the ball easily enough, but like all Snotlings fearing their lives, he tries desperately to be rid of it once he has gotten close enough to his remaining Ogre teammates. Sweet and Sour forgot how to catch a ball, if he even felt it hitting his thick head to begin with, as he struggles to fight off the encroaching dwarves upon him. Fenris, still fearing for his life, thought his best chance of survival was to be thrown by Sweet and Sour to get to the other side of the field.
Ba-da-bum, bum, ba-da-bum, bum, ba-da-bum, bum, ba-da-bum, bum.
Bye-bye!
It's so fucking hard.
Ya yeet! And he is out of here!
Sweet and Sour, however, thought Fenris meant to throw him outside the field, which still remains uncertain if that was the Snotling's plan all along. Tierling quickly grabs the ball, and now with only the Ogres left on the field, it was a very easy 0-2 victory for the Sufferers after they had their fun pushing the big brutes around. That brings us to the end of another weekly recap, with our top 3 teams continuing to fluctuate, as the Legglickers, with their loss this week, get knocked down to second place, tying with Reichland All Elite. These 2 battling out in second place means the How Not to Contain Lizards once again get their number 1 spot at the top of the rankings. Their placing may yet again change as we move on to round 4 teams this season, with Omega Eta Alpha going up against the Outworn Ideas. This will be a match to watch, if for no other reason than to watch 6 undead mummies battling out against one another, while the rest of the teams pray that they are not on the receiving end of their blocks. Omega Alpha has the speed and agility, but Outworn have the muscle, so anything can happen in this match. Match 2 is the Fragile Bloodmarks versus the Large Legends. I bet the elves are looking forward to picking on players smaller than them for a change, with the Snotlings being easy pickings for their blitzers. But with piling on ogres to worry about, they better hope that they can stay as far away from the brutes as possible, preferably with the ball in hand. Match 3 is the Bouncing Warriors versus the Cursed Suffering. The torment is almost over for our Kislev team, but that doesn't mean it's going to get any easier with these remaining matches. But I only say that to get their hopes up before Roger's team murders them. Match 4 is the Godlike Puns versus the Legglickers, a good old classic match of Amazons versus the Norse. Both fragile teams that have no problem fighting on the line of scrimmage. This is going to be a very bloody match, regardless who comes out on top. Match 5 is the Mini Sons of Anarchy versus Fluffy Green. Like the rivalry with the elves before, the dwarves are more than eager to settle their grudges against the orcs. This will be another brutal match to tune in for, if for no other reason than to see JT in action once again. Match 6 is the new Venomous Snakes as they go up against Hound of the Contained Lizards. The upstart team is likely going to have a very hard time when they have to fight the number 1 team so early in their career. I'm sure Pirate Joe will make them feel very welcomed. Match 7 is Electro Flesh versus the Jailhouse Rockers, and after the upset of beating the Godlike Puns last week, the Rockers could be the underdogs of the season, now that their team is finally starting to see some progression in their players. Although with only 2 matches left for the season, they will need to win these final games to have a chance for the playoffs, and the poor Necromantic are going to be their next victim. Finally, Match 8 pits Reichland All Elite versus the Brightwings. Reichland is basically going to have a week off this round, for I doubt they'll have any issues with our volunteer elves. Although the fans will still be craving some blood on the pitch to make it a match worth watching. You can feel the tension in the air as our teams plan and prepare for the final matches to come, knowing that it may very well be their last. So if you thought this week was brutal, it's going to get so much better next week. Thank you everyone for watching, and have a good night.